we all get taught on day one that there is a limit to science literacy. Science literacy being sort of cognition and how much you objectively know about science and its underlying concepts. The assumption is that the more you know about science and the underlying concepts, the more your attitude shifts in a positive direction towards science, which assumes a hypothesis. I mean, the hypothesis is then that inextricably attitude is linked to literacy. And for decades, this has been only very weakly supported by evidence. So it's very unscientific to then kind of persist along this assumption, this route that, oh, actually, the best outcomes for the public, I assume, is going to be knowing more about science, more quantitative things about science and its underlying concepts. And if I can just drill this home to people even more, if I can just find the perfect order of words to translate my knowledge into their brains and have them have my knowledge, then if they think like me, they will feel like me. And it's just fundamentally incorrect. Oh, I've got ringing bells going on here. I assume they're real good. And not just in my head.
I hear them too, so you're good.
That's good to know. But yeah, and I think I think its first sort of articulations happened in the 1980s around some controversies that happened after the Chernobyl incident, which left cesium deposits all over the United Kingdom. And there were lots of communication breakdowns between scientific authorities from the south who came to the north of England, to these old communities that had been in Cumbria, that had been hill farming their sheep for thousands of years, and trying to tell them how to mitigate this threat because they knew the threat from a scientific angle, and sort of discounted the contextual knowledge of the farmers who knew how to manage their sheep a lot better than these scientists from Cambridge and London. And of course, this breakdown in intergroup communication, this failure to understand each other's culture, led to a lot of bungled attempts to kind of mitigate this threat. And from then on, people noticed that, oh, this is the thing that keeps cropping up, perhaps. This perceived arrogance on the side of science and this unwillingness of science to do one of the more important communication skills that they ignore, I think, which is active listening to your audience and basing your approach upon that, as opposed to going in with, again, this deficit hypothesis that there's something essentially missing in you, that you're not behaving the way I'm prescribing, and that must be science knowledge. And so if I bring up your science knowledge, you will adhere to the scientific rules and you will do as I say, and you will be persuaded, and you will like it too, because that's the way I learned and I like it. And so, but again, it's very unscientific, because there's nothing, I mean, even to scratch the surface, it should be obvious to anybody really that attitude and literacy don't necessarily, if at all, correlate. But I don't think scientists very often view communication scientifically, which is silly, really, because communication is evolutionary, right? It's fundamentally a scientific thing. We're talking about how we as biological creatures try and share cognition, essentially, right? It's very scientific. But nevertheless, it seems to be still, even now in 2025, the default mode of communication for scientists in the English-speaking world, at least, is to say, well, what is your aim? Well, I'm a scientist, so I should stay out of everything else. I shouldn't think about polarization and politics. I shouldn't engage with the things that people want to talk about. Instead, I should ignore the things that people want to talk about. And again, go on this fabled hunt for this perfect order of words in which I can just communicate this hard science to this person who hasn't, a lot of the time hasn't the background to decode what you're even telling them. Yeah. And again, the hope being that not necessarily the outcome that's desired is a raising of scientific literacy. It's this really indirect way that they think they're going to go about getting attitude and trust, is by instead of directly addressing that, to just throw knowledge, see what sticks. And if some of it sticks, then you're going to like me, right? You're going to like the science, right? But of course, no.